Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Coin Drop Podcast. I, of course, am one of your hosts, Russ. With me, as always, for the most part, and me almost always for the most part. I guess I've been absent a couple of times lately, huh? Tim is with us, as always, mostly. We're here. This is episode number 62. Tim, how's your week been?
It's been a week. Nothing special.
Okay.
Except for Wednesday. My back started to hurt. It wasn't terrible on Wednesday, but now it hurts to breathe in some cases. It sucks. I went and got an adjustment, and I should have not gone to that place because it's the cheapest, shittiest place possible, and it didn't do anything. So I gave them money for no reason.
That's a damn shame.
Yeah, it's okay. I got a TINS unit, and
oh, you locked up for a minute there. You're back. But now I can't hear you. Yay, technical difficulties. Tim's mic he's on camera messing with his microphone. Nope, still can't hear nothing. Well, Tim figures out his issues. Talk about my week. It's been hot. It's been hot up here. Still can't hear you, Tim. Oh, there he is. He's back. Yeah, we're pros at this. Yes, we're pros at this.
well, I touched the wire on my mic, and that fucked things.
Don't touch the wire.
Also, unfortunately, my Audacity stopped recording as soon as it disconnected. So
just hit play.
Yeah,
just hit record.
I have already. Okay. I have already.
Mike, you got some work to do on this one. So you fucked up your back last week when the dog tripped you up. You also got some poison ivy that you thought you didn't get, which you got it on your arm, weirdly enough.
Yeah, you probably can't see it, but I've got some calamine lotion right here. There's a spot right there and a spot right there, and right where they touch. Yeah, it's not so bad. I mean, it's itchy, but it's not that bad.
Yeah,
I've got enough self-control where it's not that bad.
It's been hot up here, real hot. Temperatures in the hundreds pretty much every day. I don't know about down there in the south for you.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much same.
Today, my daughter's been asking to go to the carousel downtown for like 3 weeks, and I was like, yeah, fine, we'll go Saturday. Didn't realize it was going to be 105 today. So we went real early in the morning, like nobody was downtown. Yeah,
that's smart.
Came back, finally got the clothesline that I built for the wife and painted and all that. Finally got that in the dirt, set in concrete, so that's drying. And then we started tearing apart the bathroom.
The bathroom.
Yeah, and let me tell you, man, that was better than therapy. Like that was cathartic as hell. That felt so good to tear apart that shit ass bathroom. I cannot wait to have it completely demolished and get started on building it properly.
You said shit ass. When you have a chance, just YouTube butt ass. It's pretty funny.
All right. I'll have to check it out.
For all the rest of you, do the same thing.
Okay.
And now butt ass.
When I walked in that jail for the first time, you know what I smelled? I smelled butt ass.
And for viewers and listeners, just so you know, Tim and I are going to commit the number one sin of recording audio. Tim has just done it. We will be eating because both of us are hungry. You're just going to have to deal with it. I'm sorry. So
we can manage to eat in between us talking, so you shouldn't really have to worry about it so much.
Yeah, it should be fine. So today, let's talk about some games. And we talked about this when it was shown off at the Summer Game Fest. And man, the industry as a whole, surprisingly, has not really liked Dragon Age Veilguard. I was actually pretty surprised to hear that. I thought I was going to be in the minority of like, this game doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right. There's something weird about it that isn't sitting well with me. Well, as time goes on, more things come out.
You're not alone.
Yeah, I'm not alone, which is kind of comforting, but at the same time, like,
disappointing.
Next to Assassin's Creed, I would say Dragon Age is probably my favorite franchise.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I see a game I've waited 10 years for release this, they're saying all the right things, but they're saying them in bad ways. And I'll go into some detail on what that basically means. There's been a trend lately, and PC Gamer, all praise to them for catching on to this and reporting on it. there's been a trend lately at BioWare, specifically on this game, where they make the game sound good by making the old games sound bad. And it's not okay. It's not okay. They constantly, let's see, I can give you the exact quote here. Hold on. I don't want to, go ahead.
Let me give you the gist of it as I see it. Basically, what they're doing is what the current producers for Star Wars Acolyte have done. More or less, they don't know what the hell they're doing when it comes to the old games. And what I mean is they don't know the lore of the old games well enough. They're basically moving in and they're saying, this is ours now, and so we're going to do this with it. And our game is good. Those old ones are bad, and they're good because of this. And it feels like a slap in the face to not just the people that made the previous games, but for the fans that like the old ones. And while it's not necessarily wrong, it feels like that meme where you see the dude in front of his computer and there's a middle finger coming out of the computer, just rubbing it on his face. That's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah. So not everybody on the team is not aware of the previous games. For example, Mark Dara, I hope I'm saying that name right. He's a veteran of this franchise. He has been on the team since the first game. And he said, quote, previous Dragon Age games got to the realm of combat wasn't too good. In this game, the combat's actually fun. And while he's perfectly entitled to his opinion on combat from the old ones, I think we have seen that CRPG-style combat games, i.e. Baldur's Gate 3, have a massive audience, and people love that type of combat. And Dragon Age Origins, while wasn't turn-based per se, had a much more tactical RPG, old-school combat to it.
Isn't Dragon Age originally, the first one, Origins, isn't it straight like a spiritual successor to Baldur's Gate?
Yeah, it was inspired by Baldur's Gate. That was its main driving inspiration. Yes, was that it was a spiritual successor to Baldur's Gate 2.
And BG3 kept that combat system, and if you guys were not under a rock, you know very well that BG3 was like the best game of last year by a ridiculously wide margin.
BG3 went back to a more grounded CRPG style. Dragon Age Origins was definitely a little bit of action on top of dice rolling in the background, similar to how KOTOR did it, right? Like they're still in that vein. It's still dice rolling. It's just background dice rolling. So, I mean, sure, that combat system isn't for everybody, but BG3 has shown significantly that combat system works, and it works well, and it works great for storytelling. So dogging on the older games to make your game sound better just isn't really great, and it's really alienating to the long-term fans. That being said, it does feel very much like this is... I'm gonna commit a sin here for a lot of Star Wars fans. I personally fucking love Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. It's one of my favorite in the franchise. I love the idea for Star Wars of throw away the past and start over. Obviously,
is The Last Jedi the one where Luke dies?
Yes, Last Jedi is the one where...
That was a good one. That was a very good.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this idea of like, things have changed, the Jedi are gone, throw away the past, move forward. I like that idea. However, that's a film franchise that has spanned 40 years. This is a video game franchise. It doesn't equate the same. So where Star Wars, I feel like, can get away with doing that, and obviously they've fucked it up since then, but that's neither here nor there. Dragon Age, every single iteration has been a new cast. There's never been the same protagonist across all the games. And that's fine, but they at least made it feel like coherent. And Dragon Age Veilguard might do that, but they're the way they're talking about their game, it makes it feel like they're completely disrespecting the past of these games, even though they've gone on record and said, let me pull up the quote here. Quote,
I have a question once you quote this.
Okay. Quote, one of the things we wanted to make sure was that Veilguard, with Veilguard, is that it's respectful and referential to the previous games without feeling like you needed to have played Inquisition, Origins, or Dragon Age 2 to understand what's going on. That came from the creative director, John Epler, during an interview with Game Informer. What was your question?
Okay, so you said that the games and the storylines has been cohesive. But I do distinctly remember you over the years kind of bitching about all these like dead ends or loose ends, I guess would be the better way to put it.
Yeah. No, there is a lot of them.
So are they like the games have been cohesive enough, but also like the spider web has been broken left and right, and you're like, can you please fix this a little bit? Is that all it is, or
it's not like canonical or like it's not broken the way I guess the Marvel Cinematic Universe is broken, where there's a giant celestial sitting in the ocean somewhere that they haven't talked about in 12 years of film at this point. But it's broken in a sense that like there's a lot of loose ends that need to be tied up. And
Gotcha.
with Dragon Age Veilguard, back when it was Dread Wolf, the hope was there that we were seeing all of those loose ends come together, that they were going to take all of those, the child that Morrigan has, what's going on with the architect, what's going on with... Where is Hawk? Is Hawk actually like there's so many other things that they can tie in and bring together with what Dread Wolf was shaping up to be, that it has me really concerned. They've thrown away that title and moved, and it got to a point where they're kind of making fun of the old games. And
there's honestly only one storyline that I can think of personally that had, I mean, so every storyline has loose ends, you know, and you know they're meant to push the storyline forward in the moment, and then they're forgotten about, even though they could have gone deeper if they wanted to. But there's only one storyline I can think of that every loose end you can imagine that felt like it was just to push the storyline forward actually tied in at the very end, and that's actually based on or that's a book series that is based. Let me rephrase that. My tattoo is based on the book series. It's called The Sword of Truth. It is the only thing I can think of that actually properly tied everything together. And so my point in saying that is that there's a level of acceptance of loose ends that are you know, they're always going to be loose ends.
Yeah.
But Dragon Age does have some very nasty large ones that really, really need to be talked about or fixed or explained or something. But it feels like they're just kind of moving on. Kind of like Assassin's Creed, honestly. The future story of Assassin's Creed. There's huge plot holes, and you're like, can you talk about that, please?
Yeah.
Please?
There's a now existing theory I have for Veilguard, and if it is true, I don't know how they would make it true, but if they alter this to make it canonically true, it will actually be a game worth playing. So, recent article that I just read, one of these that we're actually referencing for this topic today, said that the events of Dragon Age the Veilguard take place 22 years after Dragon Age Origins. Okay?
Wait, after Origins or after
Origins? After Origins.
Okay, after the initial one.
Yes,
okay.
After the initial one, after the Warden saves Ferelden from the Blight, all of that. Then 2 happens, then Inquisition happens, then this one happens. And in that entire time, it's 22 years. Now, if they do this theory, I will eat my shorts, in the words of fucking Bart Simpson, because this is this is the best fucking possible way to honor the franchise that they claim to want to honor in the best way possible. But there's one caveat. They specifically
actually say those words. Well, they want to honor this.
So that was in the quote, right? Is they want to? Okay, so here's the next quote. I guess this is where he kind of says it. While there are references, there are moments that have callbacks. It really is its own story, its own continuation with a different cast, with different characters. Historically, Dragon Age has always had a different cast per game, so it gives us
its own story, its own continuation. How the fuck do those two things? What?
So we saw that with Dragon Age 2. Dragon Age 2 did not interact with Dragon Age Origins really at all, other than like there was Lothran, and then that's it, right? Not Lothran. What was it? I don't remember the name of the town. But anyways, Dragon Age 2 didn't really interact with Origins at all. And the beginning of it took place at like the beginning of Origins. So it kind of works, but they cut themselves short because of the potential this game had as continuing the Inquisitor's story, right? Like there was so much potential in that narrative. This is the only, and I'm going to say this, and this is a spoiler for anybody who hasn't played the very first Dragon Age Origins and beaten it. At this point, I don't know what to tell you. My theory right now, with them saying a definitive time of it being 22 years after Origins, I think Rook is the child. Canonically, I don't know how that works. I think Rook is the child that you have with Morrigan if you end the game that way in Origins. Because they only talk about him briefly in Inquisition, and I think you see him and he's like 10-ish. So if we're years after that...
Yeah, so if you look at Bethesda's, or not Bethesda's, but BioWare's other games, and honestly games that are interconnected, the storylines are interconnected, but also give you a lot of player agency, they have to choose something, some sort of basing point for the next game.
Right.
They can't choose all of the different choices and let you choose that and go from there as far as what you can, as player, can affect the storyline. They have to choose something. So it would make sense for them to choose the one that affects the story in the most significant way, i.e., Morgan's child and Rook and whatnot. That would actually be really, really, really cool tie-in back to the OG game.
It would be. It would also,
do we honestly have enough faith in them to do that?
Absolutely
though?
not. Absolutely not. And the reason for it, like, there's plenty of evidence that says this isn't going to happen because they've specifically said this isn't a chosen one story. Right? Like, this is an everyman story, right? The other evidence against it is the fact that the child is very clearly white in Dragon Age Inquisition, which could be retconned, whatever. And it's clearly a male. Again, could be retconned, whatever. However, that's the biggest, like, that's not the case. Evidence almost immediately kills that theory. But the potential for them to retcon that and make this new character basically what would amount to a god would be such a fucking amazing way to honor the past games and this insanely long... Wait, 2009? When did it come out? 2011? When did Origins come out?
I want to say 11.
Dragon Age Origins.
2009.
Yeah. So a 13-year-old story, 15-year-old story at this point?
Yeah, a 15-year continuing storyline where there's enough loose ends for them to kind of do whatever they feel like. It would be nice for them to choose one of those loose ends to really tie everything together, even if it's only one.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's me as a fan going, okay, how can this game be good? What can they do to make this story really grab you? And honestly, that's the best possible outcome, is that Rook actually is the legendary son of Morrigan, who's the legendary daughter of a freaking elven god who had the child of the Grey Warden who trapped the spirit of an archdemon inside the child. Like, dude, there's so much potential in that story.
Yeah. And so, like, your theory does sort of play to their statement. So this statement feels like a slap in the face to the old developers or the previous games, where they said that this is the first game where they intentionally, quote unquote, made the game's storyline focused on its characters.
Yeah.
Like, its characters are the storyline, the driven or the driving force of the storyline. And your theory does fit with that statement, even though that statement feels like a big FU.
Well, so
So hopefully
with Dragon Age, it muddies the water a little bit, because with Inquisition, what you mentioned where they have to pick an ending to start the next game, Dragon Age never did.
Yeah.
Dragon Age let you, with Inquisition, you could go to dragonagekeep.com and pick a bunch of choices and then implement a save file based on those choices into the game. And it didn't change a whole lot, but it did change enough.
Yes, but the basis of the storyline does have to be chosen by the developers.
Right.
And like the reason why I said their previous games did that, Mass Effect. And if in Mass Effect 2, if you die, if you as Commander Shepard dies, in number 3, well, number 3 doesn't happen. So they chose the storyline where you don't die.
Right.
And their literal cop-out for that was, well, don't die.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a cop-out.
It's a shitty cop. In my opinion, it's a shitty cop-out. They allowed a different character to be the main character. They could have easily pointed to one of the other characters that survived and let you play that character. They could have easily done that. The whole point is it's Commander Shepard's storyline, so I get it. But so my whole point of mentioning it is that they have to choose somewhere to start the next game.
Yeah.
And obviously, even if there is multiple endings, they can't base the next game off of every option.
Right.
Because that would significantly alter what happens in the storyline, and they're obviously not going to make 6 games in one.
Well,
so
in this particular, in a franchise where you follow the same character, yes. In this franchise where you play a different character each time, they're all technically independent, intertwined stories. So you can kind of do that, where it's like, okay, well, the hero Ferelden actually died, and Loghain is the one that killed the Archdemon, or the hero Ferelden was actually Alistair. That
becomes too much on the developer. Though. They can't do all of these different options. They have to choose somewhere to start. Right. There's only so much time and money and effort and all that stuff.
But that's why it becomes background for the next game. Why you don't continue that? So because then it's just changing some names and then loading some different character models. That's really all it is. Like the difference between Dragon Age, it's most noticeable in Inquisition. Basically, when you go through Keep and you make your save file, that's where you see the biggest change. Alistair shows up if he's the king. If he's not, he shows up as a drunk. If he's alive, so they did actually do. And to me, that's what made Inquisition great, was all the callbacks, all the cameos, seeing all of those choices come together in that game, from the first game and the second game and the DLCs. Like, seeing all of that come back is what made Inquisition so great. So it makes
I really wish they would make it Inquisition playable on the Steam Deck. Like, what, please? Please? I want to.
Yeah, but that's what made Inquisition great. And I want them to honor that legacy with Dragon Age Veilguard, but it sounds like they're arguably you can pick up Inquisition and never played the originals and make your way through the game.
You mean Veilguard?
No, Inquisition. So if you've never played Origins or 2 and you just go straight into Inquisition, you can play the game. You're going to miss a lot of key information that you just don't know.
I mean, that's a strategy for every game sequel. They always try to make it in such a way where you don't have to play the previous games.
But in a game series like this, where the past is so important, it scares me. It makes me worried.
But they do have to try and make their game as playable to anybody as possible, including ones that have never played the previous games. So that statement isn't terribly far off, but they're making it sound like the other ones can be completely thrown in the trash, forget everything that happened, and just pick it up and go. And it means nothing.
It's like when a dev says our next game is going to be our best game yet. It's a nothing sentence. It's a nothing sentence. But in this case, for this specific franchise, it's a worrying sentence. Strix. If you have not played, if you've only have Inquisition, I strongly recommend going to Dragon Age Keep and making all your choices based off literally nothing other than what you want to choose, and then clicking the little video that walks you through in a very cool stained glass version the narrative of those two games, and then export that file to Inquisition. It is hands down a fantastic software.
It does depend on if he's played Inquisition yet or not. Because if he has, then that means nothing. Especially because Veilguard doesn't use Keep.
No, but he said he only has Inquisition. So you're not my real dad. You're right. I just play your dad on TV, but that's besides the point.
How do you know?
So there's some stuff here. We talked about a lot of the exploration that they've talked about. We've talked about the setting. I actually like the art. I'm actually personally a very big fan of this art style. It just feels like a very weird departure from where Dragon Age was going.
Yes. The art style isn't bad, but it's different. It feels like it's different just to be different from the previous games. They want to stand out from the previous games and be popular with, like we said before, every character looks like they're, been filtered through a Snapchat filter. And there's no point for them to have done this hero shooter
Yeah, trailers suck though. Trailers suck. I will say this: I'm excited to play it on PC and put it through Reshade so that I can give it a grittier, less color poppy. Look. Yeah, at least that'll help me feel better about it, because it doesn't look bad. It just doesn't feel like the setting of Dragon Age.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of games that look like this that are just fine, and I'm sure this one would be too. But this is actually a conversation that I ran into on Twitter, I think earlier today. Someone was like, "Is it just me, or does all FPS games look like they've gone through a color filter and there's no longer grittiness in shooters anymore? They're all hero shooters with bright colors and all this bullshit." And it's that's pretty much correct. Grittiness doesn't exist in video games anymore.
Yeah.
I think the closest we get is God of War.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. Alcahest potentially, if that game actually comes out, has some good grit to it. If it is what it shows. No, it's this interesting. We saw this shift. I actually saw a meme about it. It was games in the 2020s don't have any identity. They're all just focused on hyperrealism. And I sat back and I thought about it for a second. I was like, yeah, definitely the first half of 2020s, they've been super focused on hyperrealism. So it's nice to see games kind of move away from everything having to be hyperrealistic. But now it feels like
before. We have brought that up.
But it feels like everybody has moved away from hyperrealistic now. Yeah. So it's like there's no balance. There's no balance.
Instead of having, this game fits that mold, this game fits that mold, etc., they're all like, you know what? Fuck hyperrealism. Let's be as ridiculous as possible and be in the fantasy realm, but also be in the fantasy realm that's like a mixture of kid fantasy realm and a little bit of adult fantasy realm. So like they're trying to fit both or as many boxes as possible, which generally doesn't work very well. You want to have the games for kids, the games for teens, the games for adults. You want to have those clear boundaries because I want games like the OG Dragon Age that are gritty and dark and like you're going to see beheadings and stuff like that. But I also want to have the games that my kids can play.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I want everything to be mixed in one.
Yeah. It's gaming is moving in a direction. Well, time will tell whether or not that's the right direction. But with the issues that we've been seeing with things like Assassin's Creed plagiarism, the weird choices being made by the devs behind Justice League or Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, implementing a lesbian Mrs. Freeze, which completely just seems...
The only thing I'll say about that is it's not just Mrs. Freeze, it's Mrs. MRS, meaning she's the wife of somebody. Freeze, and she's a lesbian. How the fuck does that work? But anyways,
fuck, didn't think it through. It's like those T-shirts that say there's more than two genders and you can only buy it in male or female.
Men's and women's.
That makes me laugh every time.
Every time.
But back to Dragon Age, man. The combat looks fun. It does. It looks very action RPG. It honestly almost looks like a third-person Diablo style gameplay to me, which I'm not opposed to. But saying that the old combat systems weren't fun,
well, yeah, that's stupid. That was a stupid statement.
Devs say things all the time that gets misconstrued, or they say things without really thinking it through. Prime example is the EA dev that called all the people commenting on Battlefield 1 armchair.
No, he was accurate. He was 100% accurate.
He was accurate. I'm not saying he wasn't.
I don't think he deserved any flack. He 100%. Everyone deserved that statement, in my opinion.
Can I talk now?
Yes.
Okay. Probably wasn't the best time to say it, is all I was going to say. He's 100% accurate. Probably wasn't the time and place for that statement, right? I kind of feel like that might be...
That's just the internet these days. Everyone chimes in when they have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah. But I want this game to be good. They've said things that make me think the game is going to be good. It sounds like the story is going to be mainly focused by your companions, which is really a big departure from the franchise. Like, BioWare, for the most part, has followed the idea of, like, there's a main story and then your side stories are your supporting cast, right? So it sounds like their main story is your supporting cast now, which I don't know how that's going to play out with this. It feels really weird. It could roll really well, but your companions should not be the primary story, in my opinion, in any game.
No, there needs to be some sort of crux, some sort of major issue that you're dealing with. Your characters help you deal with that, and they are important, and their story is important too, but they're not the main focus. At least they shouldn't be.
Right. So we'll see what that actually amounts to when that time comes. I don't know if I'm going to buy it, though. Like,
I'm not sold yet either.
I'll give it some time. I mean, Star Wars Outlaws turned me around. A game I literally started out with zero interest in when they first showed it off was just like, oh, Star Wars GTA, not interested. Nope. Ubisoft has sold me on that one. So we'll see what Dragon Age does. But so far, I'm not willing to give them my money right now. But speaking of things we're not willing to give money to, there's somebody, I think, Tim, that everybody can agree we're all willing to give money to, but for some reason,
Yeah.
the man just doesn't want the money. No Man's Sky.
Yeah, so Sean Murray is who he's referencing. He's the main talking head behind Hello Games' No Man's Sky. And, it's got quite the storied history, which we could go on to explain, but I won't in favor of time. Basically, he's done everything. Him and his studio, his small studio of less than 20 people, have done everything
12.
they possibly can.
Total of 12. It's a total of 12 people in his studio.
I want to say they had 17 at one point. But
Did they have 17? Maybe I'm wrong. I'll look it up.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's a small team is the point. Basically, they've done everything they possibly can to remedy this situation with No Man's Sky, even though they should have had sympathy for what happened. But they also could have had better messaging. In any case, over the past 8 years, it's been 8 years since this game came out. They have dramatically altered this game to become one of the best, absolute best live service, or I don't even know if you can call this live service, but long-running games where they're constantly updating it and adding things to it. Well, they recently, just the other day, they announced that there's going to be the first, this is No Man's Sky Worlds update, but Worlds Part 1. And so this is update 5.0, and the short of it is they're transforming the universe into a richer, wilder, and more varied and immersive place featuring huge leaps in water and cloud visuals, increased planetary diversity, new gameplay features, and a whole lot more. If you go to the actual nomansky.com website and look for this particular update, deep dive, there's so much here. It's like a Final Fantasy 14 expansion update. Like, it's so much content, new armor, new enemies, new biomes. The way the water reacts is based on the weather system, and the wind now affects everything in the game, from the grass to the trees and so on and so forth. It's dependent on the cycles of the moon, like all of it, like everything's touched. It's insane. They're adding new fauna and flora, which means trees, or not trees, but plants and life, and alien life. They've got floating islands and stuff now, because I guess the gravity, the way they're describing it, gravity is affected on various planets. There's now reflections on water. The water is no longer stagnant. It actually has waves and stuff like that, depending on the way the wind system on the planet. There's volumetric clouds now, which really add depth to the worlds, and when you're on them and you're flying through them, the clouds are no longer stagnant, flat ones that you just fly through. Which also affects the lighting system. You can now have solar-powered ships that you can customize in really cool ways, which a whole bunch more ship parts. The lighting is now far more realistic, volumetric lighting with detailed shadows, so that it just adds depth to the whole game, just makes it feel less flat. There's more expeditions now, which has like some sort of bug queen in it, which the expeditions are a really big addition to the game. So they're kind of like the major orders for Helldivers. Basically, it gets the community working together to complete a major mission, more or less. There's just so much to this, and they're saying this is just the first of the world's updates. They've got plenty of GIFs and videos that show you just how different the game looks. And they said this is actually a universal update, meaning like the whole universe is going to see some sort of changes, which in the past when they've done this, the planets will totally change. Like the planet that used to be a perfect paradise planet is now like a gas giant that's impossible to survive on, and so on and so forth. Like the planets just totally change. I don't know if that's going to be the case with this one, but I would presume that's the case. So sucks to be you if you were on a paradise planet. It might not be anymore. There's new mechs, like military style mechs that you can get. There's now like bug armor and stuff like that. There's just so much to talk about when it comes to the stuff they've added. Basically, if you've ever been interested in No Man's Sky and for some reason have yet to purchase it, I think it's still on sale on Steam for $24. Totally worth looking at. I don't know about the console versions, which it is
still
available
on.
Okay, yeah. So it's available on PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch. Although I think the Switch is the only version that, one, doesn't have multiplayer, and two, is kind of behind in updates, which sort of makes sense to a degree.
Yeah.
But in any case, there's plenty now. There's even walking buildings. They said some buildings have evolved and they now walk around. And Sean Murray himself on Twitter just the other day said, finding out that the walking buildings can lay eggs, which if to basically say you can breed animals in this game as companions, which means you can breed the walking buildings. And that's interesting because the breeding system allows you to literally play with any of the fauna in the game, the alien life. You can play with it and you can crossbreed anything. There's no limitations. So you can now crossbreed all sorts of shit with walking buildings and stuff now too, which is really, really interesting. It's going to be wild to see the stuff that people come up with or manage to make.
So the game is on sale until the 29th. For just under $30. Yeah.
Yeah.
I might have to buy it. I don't know when the hell I'm going to play it, but I still need to buy it. They have VR support.
Even if you just
they
bought
have
it to have it there,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah. It's definitely a game I need to have in my collection.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't realize this. Sean Murray didn't only build a video game with no experience and a small team. He built a game engine.
Yep.
It's a proprietary engine. I did not realize they built the engine for No Man's Sky. So that's pretty wild. I had no idea they did that.
Which does explain in some ways. So like they added water technology, ray tracing, and volumetrics for clouds and weather effects and like dust and things of that sort. That's only just being added into this update.
Yeah.
While in most big open world games, those are pretty standard things.
Well, nowadays and so they are. They sure as hell weren't when this game came out.
I would argue that in the point of like there's been plenty of open world games where those have been pretty standard. But my point is that they're finally getting to be able to add those things to their engine because they're learning as they go.
Yeah.
But they're doing it in such a beautiful way. They don't take any money from people for these updates. They don't ask for anything.
They're all free. They always have been. It's really fucking wild.
And he continues to say that they're going to continue to be that way, which is wild to me. There's no microtransaction. There's no way to give them additional money. And at this point, the fans are almost begging to give him money for the updates. They're like, Sean, we're willing to spend some money on this stuff for you guys. But the game has been so successful, releasing on all the different platforms, that then they're such a small team that they don't care.
Yeah,
they love the game, they love their fans, and they just love what they do. And so they're going to continue to do that. Like, I guess for them, it's not a charity, but like they just love it so much and they have enough money that they're satisfied and they're going to continue to satisfy their fans. And like you can see that in the next game, Light No Fire, which they announced, I think 6 months ago now.
Yeah.
It looks so good. It's basically all of the technology in No Man's Sky. It almost makes it feel like No Man's Sky is sort of a beta test, which obviously it's not, but like it's sort of like, like you said earlier, their next game is going to be the best game ever. And it should be. But they're taking the lessons they've learned in a really solid, good way with No Man's Sky and implementing that into Light No Fire, which Light No Fire is basically No Man's Sky, but in a fantasy world. And instead of having bajillions, quadrillions of planets, there's one. There's one planet, but it's also that planet is like retardedly massive.
It's the size of a planet.
Size of a real planet. Yeah.
Yes.
I have a feeling it's going to be bigger than Earth, so there's going to be more than enough space to play on. And it makes me wonder how easy it's going to be to traverse. Like they've shown mounts and stuff, but if I want to go to the other side of the planet, it's going to take me literal, 25 hours to travel, 2,000 miles.
I mean, like that Elite Dangerous is real world travel, if I'm not mistaken. Strix played that one for a while, and you just you set your jet and you fly for 24 real hours, and you've traveled however many light years you can travel at that speed, in that amount of time. So I wouldn't be opposed to having like real travel distance, real travel time. That sounds wild.
Yeah, it would. So like, there's obviously going to be base building and stuff. They've already shown it for Light No Fire. And it makes me wonder, like I said, like if I want to travel across the world, and are they going to add teleportation like No Man's Sky eventually added? Or are they going to make it to where you just got to make that decision and abandon what you've made and move on?
It's the Oregon Trail, baby.
I like that idea. That makes your decisions far more important. That's something that games don't do.
If they do that, I am absolutely naming my character the Donner Party. Like, I'm just going to be, let's go West, guys.
I'm not going to play with you, my friend.
Let's see who makes it. Roll the dice.
I just listened to a podcast about that.
Or you're going to get eaten. Yeah. We'll find out.
Right? Yeah, no, it would just be a cool way to make your adventure mean more, because you're not just traveling, you're traveling to probably never return to where you're at again. And if you do, sure, it's just going to take you a long ass time to do it.
Yeah.
And that's cool. and to be able to like really explore the planet and come across new civilizations because someone else is playing it, on the planet the other half the planet away, and you're going to bump into these guys and be like, oh, look what they've made, this is awesome, and you can either join them or you can just be passing through, or
Yeah.
for
Or
all we
fight 'em.
know there's going to be PvP.
Who
Yeah, or
knows?
for all we know there's going to be PvP. Exactly. It's No Man's Sky it's been such an amazing thing to watch go from basically universally hated to now universally loved, to people being like, Sean, please let us give you money.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's such an awesome thing you just don't see in the industry, or at least you don't see to this pedigree in any ways.
Well, so this information is just over 2 years old, but as of 2 years ago, No Man's Sky has sold more than 10 million units worldwide. So if we're talking 20-ish people and 10 million units, that's a lot of fucking money. So that, I mean, theoretically, if these are, and they were just guys who wanted to make a video game and it fucking exploded, they don't, theoretically, if they were smart with that money, invested correctly, there's no reason to charge for updates to No Man's Sky.
Exactly.
I would argue they sold millions day one and took that money and buckled down and got to work. And with their next game coming out, I mean, I would not be surprised if they go the same route with Light No Fire, of just free support forever.
I fully expect it.
So.
Yep.
Well, it's definitely a game I want to play. It's got VR support. It's got multiplayer. It's gorgeous. Just looking at how far it's come since the initial release, I definitely need to add it to my list and find the time to play it. So
I mean, even just for the price, go buy it. Just to one, give them a little bit of money, and two, add it to your library to where you can play it when you want to.
Yeah.
And I've played enough of No Man's Sky since the original launch. I'm literally a day one purchaser of the original game, and I've liked it since then. And I'm just happy to see where it's come. It's one of those games where you can pick up and play it whenever you feel like, and just put it back down. You don't have to play it constantly. But now there's so much stuff to do where you could play it constantly if you wanted to.
Sure. Yeah. It's the perfect blend of like live service and just like make your own fun, I think. Like it doesn't feel like a game where you have to go out and do all the content. I mean, we talked about it last week with Final Fantasy 14 briefly, I think on the Patreon side, where it feels like it feels like it's the same every time, and it's even Yoshi P acknowledges that like it's the same every time because MMOs haven't really moved forward in 20 fucking years. So yeah. But speaking of stagnation and things staying the same and nothing ever changing, we talked about this last week. Nobody Wants to Die came out shortly after our last podcast. Came out last Wednesday. The reason I bring up that nothing changes. Nobody Wants to Die is, as the title says, a game where nobody dies per se. And this launched on Wednesday. And actually, Strix in the chat coined, if this isn't actually a thing already, it is now, thanks to Strix. So Critical Hit Games, here you go. This is a noir punk. Yes, noir punk game.
Noir punk.
That's what he's coined it. We were talking about it. It fits perfectly. It's a very noir style game. This is actually capture from my playthrough of the game. I'm about an hour into it. It is very, very heavily narrative driven. The voice acting is ungodly good for a small budget indie game. I mean, the voice actors are so on point. The line delivery is amazing. The banter between James and I can't remember the other lady's name that's helping you out in it, but it's so on point and it feels really good. There's a few things about the game that feel a bit janky. I don't know if it's just me, but I had some issues with the actual like mechanic of rewinding time and like finding the item I'm supposed to interact with. I don't know if that was on my side or if it was just a little jank on the actual game side or not. And you'll see that in this.
It's probably more the game side. That'd be my best guess, given it's a smaller developer.
I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt and say I just missed stuff, but you'll see it in the footage here. There is branching pathing in dialogue. If you do certain things, it unlocks different dialogue options. If you find certain things, it unlocks different dialogue options. Previously, before this, I was getting my badge back because I just got reinstated, and I was sitting in line to go into the post office, and I had the option to take another drink of whiskey, and so I did. And by doing that, I unlocked the dialogue option to tell a really bad dad joke, which I am now going to repeat, and it was fantastic. Yes. So, Tim, I'm going to ask you this question. Why did the cops show up to the baseball game? Because somebody stole second base.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. That is literally a line that James says to Sarah. And she's like, awesome. Really, James? Dad jokes? And he's just like, it's so good, awesome. Dude. It's so good. As far as I can tell, there is no combat so far in this game. I'm only on chapter 2. Seems to be entirely noir style, thought-provoking investigation, which I'm all for, honestly.
Yeah, that's not common at all.
It's very cool. Branching choices. I mean, you can see here on screen, I've got a couple of different dialogue choices of how to react. It definitely has some replayability to say some different things and see what that unlocks, and maybe if you miss something or don't find something, there's a lot of potential here. I don't know how deep it goes, but I am having a ton of fun playing it. I love the film noir setting. Noir punk is just amazing. This whole idea of like steampunk style setting with cyberpunk tech is just so fucking cool. I can't talk it up enough. Honestly, Critical Hit Games, way to fucking knock this one out of the park. The game functions really well. I don't know how optimized it is on all systems. On my PC, I ran it basically 60 frames, max settings, 0 issues. Did not run well on the Steam Deck. I don't know if that's bad optimization on the game side or if because it's just too graphically intensive for the Steam Deck with all the particle physics and things like that. Didn't run well on the deck, but that could change in the future.
I will add, there's a guy I watch on YouTube who's an ex-EA developer, and he's making his own graphics engine. And he's basically said the volumetrics that you see on Fire and Dust and things of that sort, those are effectively free. Like, those cost almost nothing. So I highly doubt that had anything to do with your Steam Deck performance. It's probably just something that the game hasn't optimized well for the Steam Deck. They probably haven't built a Steam Deck.
It's entirely possible. Yeah, it's entirely possible. I tried to fiddle with it. I put it on even the lowest, and I couldn't pull above 20 frames per second. So I couldn't get it to work. But on the PC,
I'm sure they'll work on it.
Even if they don't, I don't really care. It plays fine enough on PC. It doesn't seem like it's a very big game, which personally I'm grateful for. It's a relatively low price tag. I think I picked it up for just under $25.
I think it's $30 normal, but it was on sale day one or something like that.
Yeah, it's worth it. Honestly, if you want a narrative, story-based investigation where you solve a whodunit kind of thing, highly recommend it. So like there you can see I finally found what I was supposed to scan, and I was like, I don't know if I just missed it or if I didn't have the like setting on the reenactor set properly. I don't know, but a little bit of finickiness to it. Overall, dude, I'm loving it. It's a fun ass game, and I cannot wait to finish it and find out more about what's going on in James's story. To go a little bit deeper into detail, James is a rather washed up detective who was on a case that he closed, but somehow it involved a really nasty train accident that quote unquote killed him. And so he got a new shell, and there's been some synchronization issues for him, which is why he takes that medicine. It's why he's seeing what seems to be his dead wife showing up in his head and things like that. You can see that in that 10-minute trailer and things. So there definitely seems to be some syncing issue with his new shell. And so he tried to get back into the police force. The chief said, fuck you, no, and then sent him on this off the books thing to what should have been a quick and easy recover the Icarat. Recover the Icarat and basically help this guy who technically is you could call him modern day royalty. He's the super rich that has been around since the beginning of the Icarat and helped sign into law and principle all the things around it and how it works. And your typical sleazy rich dude who gets away with everything is generally it. And you find out that his Icarat is fucking toasted, so there is no coming back. He is donezo.
This almost sounds like a fully 3D, first person perspective version of Disco Elysium, but in, cyberpunk / noir.
Yeah.
But like in a really cool way where it's its own thing, like there's no direct comparison, but you can feel a lot of the similarities between the two, which if you've never played Disco Elysium, that's another really solid game. I
have started it. I haven't gotten very far into it because the dice rolling system didn't make sense to me, so I gave up and then started looking into the dice rolling system, because when I don't understand how a system works in a video game, it feels rigged when it doesn't work the way I'm expecting it to. So
which is fair.
I understand more how that system works, so I'll probably go back to it at some point. But I could, just from the brief bit I played, it does have that, like, those tropes of that genre. Washed up detective, alcoholic, blah blah blah, that idea. So but yeah, man, it's really cool. There's a part, I can actually fast forward up to it, I guess, here, where I am investigating the office. I burned some files. This part right here, where this guy has like an aroma collection of food from, presumably hundreds of years ago, and Sarah asked James to smell the chocolate and describe it to her. And you got some really funny conversation that you can do there, and some interesting things that you can say. I said it smelled like a leather jacket and it felt like tobacco, and the more I smelled it, it made me want to eat it. And she's like, so it feels like oiled tobacco, smells like a leather jacket, and the more you sniff it, the more you want to eat it. Great. It's just, there's some interesting dialogue to have here.
It almost sounds like the dialogue options between in Firewalk, which was such a solid game. It was a walking simulator, but the conversation in that game was so good.
Firewatch?
And so it almost sounds Firewatch, yeah. And it almost sounds like they're taking inspiration from that game in the dialogue options with the people you're talking on the comms with.
If I'm not if I'm not mistaken, they did reference that as one of their influences. I could be conflating that with a different game, but yeah, I could be. I don't recall, but yeah, I remember that being mentioned. I don't know if it was this game or a different game, but yeah, it's pretty cool, man. Honestly, if you're looking for a game you can pick up, and probably judging by what the trophies look like and where the game looks like it's going, I'm gonna assume it's about 7 hours of gameplay, maybe 10.
There's too many games that are like hundreds of hours long, so a shorter game is nice.
I wouldn't peg this one for being a super long game based on what I've seen so far and kind of where it feels like the story's going. And it doesn't inherently feel like... It doesn't feel like Heavy Rain. You know what I mean? Like Heavy Rain has kind of a similar premise, but it splits the story into multiple different characters, and then you've got a whole bunch of branching options there. This doesn't feel like it has that kind of branching narrative, obviously, because you play as one person. So it doesn't feel like it's a super long game, which I really respect, because time is limited as a dad and a husband with a ton of projects to do. So,
but you also never know. They might gut punch you and be like, there's actually 50 hours of content here. Well, probably not.
I'd be surprised if they're able to pull 50 hours out of this.
Yeah. It's more of a direct storyline, which is nice. It's nice to be a pointed storyline. Play this game, play the storyline, be done with it. Move on to the next thing.
Yeah. So let's see. I'm pulling up their sales right now. Trying to see if I can find sales numbers, price history. It looks like there's 595 people in game currently, and it has
via Steam charts.
Yeah, SteamDB. Yeah, 84.66 on the rating right now, roughly. So it's sold fairly well. I mean, for being a peak hours, all-time high was 1,300, so it sold at least 1,300 copies.
Yep.
So not bad for a game out of nowhere from a new indie dev. Who knows how many
So if you go by 3 different tracker websites, the low count for sales is 10,300, and the high count is 20,500.
So somewhere between 10 and 20,000. That's pretty respectable.
Yeah, that's not too bad for a brand new developer. And the average rating is 8466. So like that's a high rating too for first game.
Yeah, it runs well. It's a really simple premise. The gameplay is really straightforward. Plays well on a controller. Plays well on a mouse and keyboard. I hope they can optimize it for the Steam Deck because it feels like it'd be a great title for the Steam Deck. But that is pretty much all we had to say about Nobody Wants to Die. I did just remember we didn't talk about our Patreon tonight. So just so you guys know, all of my footage for this game will be posted on the Patreon for free, unedited. It'll be there. Well, not for free. For our patrons, it'll be for free. If you want to watch any of that content, it'll be over there exclusively. Yeah, be for paid. I'll post it over there. You guys are more than welcome to watch it. Head over to patreon.com/coindroppod. We will be doing extra content over there. We do at least an extra 15 to 20 minutes minimum per episode exclusive over there, as well as kind of go over the upcoming games. Last week we skipped that because we had a big chunk in conversation that took up a lot of time, but we will be talking about upcoming games tonight. So if you want to support us, $3 at a minimum is our cheapest tier. It gets you a special access to a patron exclusive side of our Discord. If you join our Discord, helps us keep the lights on, helps us keep making content, and potentially giving giveaways. That's our goal. Yeah. Like, we want to give you guys games. We want to do stuff. So your support means a lot to us. Let's move on to quickfire news. I think you got some stuff for us, Tim.
Yeah, and we're going to try to actually make these quickfire this time around.
Yes.
So the first one I have is Assassin's Creed Shadows. We talked about it last week. It's becoming even more of a big deal. Basically, Japan, it turns out that it might become a diplomatic incident, whatever that means particularly. I guess their government's going to be looking into it. And the quote historian who informed the game turns out was a big liar. He's actually been shamed. His work has been removed from the college he was working at. And yeah, it's no good. It doesn't look good for them at all. The next one I have is
hold on, real quick.
Oh, sorry.
What how did it was he just like completely a fraud? Do we have any information on that, or like
my understanding of what I've read is basically he rewrote history and was passing it off as actual history. And he's been found out.
Wow. That's tenure ending shit. Okay, let's move on.
Yes. The next one is BioShock 4. You have something to say about this one?
Yeah. So recently there was a leak, a couple of leaked images for BioShock 4. I didn't want to post them here. I don't want to show them. I don't like showing leaks, but there seems to be an indication that the players will have some kind of control over time, which I didn't play Infinite, but if I'm not mistaken, Infinite had some kind of control over dimensions, right? Like, didn't the lead female wasn't she able to dimension hop? Maybe it was time. I don't remember.
She could dimension hop,
right?
But you couldn't control it, so you would kind of hop between different dimensions now and again. But it was storyline.
Yeah. Of course it was. So BioShock 4 is assumedly moving along in development. It looks good. Okay. All right. Sorry, my wife came up. She was looking for something. Like, I thought my wife came up. She was looking for something. I thought she was looking for what I had, and she was not. Anyways, I want to be a big fan of the BioShock franchise. But like the one thing that always irked me about those games is I like to explore zones and like kill all the enemies and then check things out. And BioShock had a bad tendency of like you kill them and then more splicers would show up while you're just exploring. And it was really frustrating because I wanted to just explore Rapture and look around. So I hope 4 changes that and it doesn't do that consistent thing. I didn't play Infinite. I've heard mixed things about Infinite, but yeah, if you're interested in those leaks, just look up BioShock 4 leak, and you'll find those images.
I'll just give you a tiny bit of context on Infinite. I played it last year on my Steam Deck, and they sort of fixed that a little bit. But the series originally came around when enemies infinitely respawn to kind of keep things interesting. So they have slowly peeled away from that. So hopefully they'll do that for the next one too.
That'd be nice.
So the next bit of news, less video game, more video game show. Halo, the TV show, was canceled after 2 seasons because
Hell yeah.
it turns out when you make a shitty, what do you call it, adaptation of a TV show, people don't like it.
Dude, it's so wild to me that this shit goes so wrong. Everything that they could have done wrong for this show, they did. Just in every possible conceivable way. As a fan of the Halo franchise, this was a abomination of Halo, and we got Master Chief in like 2 episodes of the show, and we're just
it makes you wonder when it comes to adaptations, why do they so regularly suck? Is like because the people that are making it don't actually look into the source material, or they're not actual fans of the source material? Like, why does it happen so often?
Honestly, I think it comes down to hubris. Bottom line, it comes down to these people want to say, no, this is mine, even though it doesn't belong to them. They have no right to it. Look at the Lord of the Rings show, right? Like, that director straight up said, this isn't Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. But, well, fuck you.
This is mine.
He owns it. It's his. He died with it. He created it. You need to pay homage to the person that created what you're trying to build in. And the dirtiness that they did for Halo, I'm so glad the show is canceled. I didn't watch season 2. Season 1 was an atrocity. Like, everything they needed was in the games. It wasn't hard. They've made plenty of good Halo animations. Like, there's...
Yeah, like I get it that it's changing mediums. You got to change a few things here and there, but they could have just straight up made it Halo storyline and done nothing else,
and it would have sold like fucking hotcakes. The worst part is, like, happy with it. As a Halo fan, I've wanted Halo on the big screen since Halo 1. And there's been talks of Halo on the big screen since Halo 1. Michael Bay signed on at one point. J.J. Abrams signed on at one point. Like, Christopher Nolan was supposedly in talks at one point, and this is ultimately what we ended up getting, and it's a fucking atrocity. I'm glad it's dead, and I hope it stays there, buried in the deepest parts of hell.
It's unfortunate, but anyways, moving on. The quick fire news.
Yes.
Number 4 is the developers of Tower of Fantasy, which is a Genshin Impact like, have announced their next game. It's called, strangely, Neverness to Everness. Basically, the best way I can describe this game, based on the combat or the gameplay trailer that I watched, because there's a cinematic trailer and a gameplay trailer, it looks like GTA meets Grand Theft Auto. Like, it's set in an urban city, and it has...
But you just said GTA meets Grand Theft Auto.
I'm sorry, GTA meets Genshin Impact.
Thank you. Okay.
It's sorry. It looks like that, which is new for the Genshin Impact like games. So, and there actually is a different game that kind of has that same feel too, that was announced a few months ago. So we'll see which one comes out first and which one looks better. And in my opinion, the Neverness to Everness looks like it has a better combat system than the other one, which I can't think of its name. But anyways, there's another one coming. There's plenty of Genshin Impact likes because they make billions of dollars. Next, this is going to be super obscure, and most people probably aren't going to know this except for me. But there's a video game series that came out around the GameCube days called Chibi Robo, which is like you're effectively a Thumbelina-sized robot, and you just do little tasks for your person. And they basically are making a spiritual successor called Co-Robo, and it's going to hit Kickstarter soon. So if you happen to know what that series is, consider supporting them. And if you don't know what it is, personally, I say go look into it, because I thought the Chibi Robo games were fun.
Okay, I remember this now. I didn't play this game, but I just Googled it. I remember this little weird Robo guy. Yeah, okay. I didn't play this one, but I was aware of it. Yeah.
They were fun games. They got like 2 or 3 of them, and then they made one for the DS or the 3DS, one of the 2 systems. Yeah. And that was a side scroller, but still, like they were fun little games. They're definitely Japanese, and this one looks like it's a good spiritual successor to Chibi Robo. Yeah. So the next one, Bethesda has formally unionized. The studio has, and it's apparently Microsoft's first studio to unionize properly. I wonder what that means. Being as I'm part of a union, it makes me wonder if unions basically give the developers bargaining power against their quote contractors. Their contractor in this case, I guess, is Microsoft. So it'll be interesting to see. Like, are they just going to argue with better pay or better package for working? I don't know, environment, or are they going to go, well, we want to make our games available for everybody, or wherever they feel like. It'll be interesting to see what that means. I mean, Microsoft is already moving towards a third-party strategy anyway, so maybe this will just be that push to make it more the case. I don't know. I do know that when they bought Activision, when Microsoft bought Activision, and they were like, yeah, we're going to keep making our games for PlayStation, Bethesda was like, what the fuck? What? You told us we couldn't.
Yeah.
So it would make sense that would be something they move towards.
I've got mixed feelings on unions, but I think video game industry is definitely a place that needs them. So good on them.
Yeah,
I
for
wish
sure.
them all the best. Good luck, Bethesda.
Mm-hmm. Just, give me Fallout. Not Fallout, but
Elder Scrolls
Elder
6.
Scrolls 6 already.
Yeah,
not in 2045.
Well, it's gonna be Cyberpunk. Elder Scrolls is what it's gonna be,
right
at this point.
Right. And so we this next topic, we've talked about Sweet Baby Inc. a little bit here and there. Their latest victim is the game called Flintlock, which is a very Souls-like game, a little less Souls-like, a little more action, but still kind of Souls-like. Long story short, it's released to abysmal sales, player count, and reviews. So, yeah, more or less, it's a flop, and I guess I can say I told you so. So can a lot of other people.
Oh, I remember them showing this game came out already. God dang, I didn't even freaking know it came out.
Yeah, it just released, I think, this last week.
Wow.
And unsurprisingly, it's not very good. And there's a history behind what Sweet Baby Inc. has done with it, and it's out there if you care. They've done a lot of stuff to make it worse, more or less.
I mean, all I gotta say is when you set a checklist of what needs to be in something that is a inherently creative and unique art, when you set a checklist of what needs to be in it, you take away all the creativity and art in it. You just do. You inherently kill the artist and smother them by saying you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. You create a box and you force people into them. It kills creativity. So stop. Stop.
Yeah. So this actually, I wasn't planning on talking about this because I didn't think about it, but interestingly enough, Microsoft recently just laid off their DEI team, their diversity, equity, inclusion team, and said that is no longer mission critical. And they're basically going back to, it sounds like to me, they're going back to allowing creators to be creatively, free to do what they want. Because not like 4 or 5 months ago, when Stellar Blade came out, Microsoft had actually released a directive to their developers, and this is not joking, look this shit up. They basically said you can't have curvy, beautiful women in your video games.
It's okay to have attractive men, but you can't have attractive women.
Yes. And so they're apparently abandoning that. And there's actually quite a few companies outside of the video game industry that are also abandoning that push. So
that's good.
I want. Speaking. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was going to move on to the next topic. So.
I just wanted to. The wife and I were talking kind of about that whole thing. I was talking to her about Assassin's Creed and how the debacle with that, and how a group of white guys who made one of the greatest Japanese games of all time were basically honored. Ghost of Tsushima, and she brought up a really good point that I didn't really think about. And basically, it's when you're a similar group of people, you can identify things that are missing as a whole a lot easier than you can as a bunch of individuals who some people's voices are given more credence than others because of their culture, their background, whatever, if that makes sense. And I was like, you know what? That's a good point. So basically her process, and I'm probably saying this wrong because she's way smarter than me, and a little of this went over my head, to be honest with you. But basically, by having a group that are so similar, not by choice, but by meritocracy, like we were talking about, that they were all focused on the same goal, could see the same picture, they could identify the things that were wrong with what they were seeing and fix them, versus having so many different people from different views, different cultures, looking at the same picture and seeing different things wrong. Does that make sense?
So what I'm understanding from what you're saying is that effectively, when you force people into these positions, there's butting of heads unless those people that are in those positions fill the position because they merit that position. They are good at that thing, and they all come together. They can see what's wrong and fix it in a good way, versus people that are mashed into a position they shouldn't be in. They're going to effectively see what they don't like and try to fix it, but they're actually going to make it worse.
And beyond that, when you hire people based on some arbitrary checklist, you're giving them preference. So their voice is quote unquote way more than anybody else's. So that creates part of the issue as well. When everybody is equal, weird, based on merit, weird, things seem to go better. And she theorized that might be kind of another issue with where Ubisoft's at. But that's just kind of neither here nor there.
It turns out literally all of life on Earth has hierarchies. This is how it works. Meritocracy is just how it works. Sorry, you can't get rid of it.
We're moving back towards it, I think. There's a lot of industries now that don't really give a shit whether you have a piece of paper. They care whether you can do the job. There are some where piece of paper is definitely still important, but the ability to do the job is becoming more important again. As it should be. So let's move on.
Exactly. Yes. So the next topic is sort of on topic, kind of ish. Basically, PlayStation's Concord, which is their Overwatch style hero shooter, it has definitely been struck by the DEI fist. And you can just look at it. You can see it. It's impossible not to. I don't know if Sweet Baby Inc. had anything to do with it. In any case, the game is currently available in open beta. Over the last few days, it was available in closed beta if you had pre-ordered the game. But even in the open beta on Steam anyways, because we don't know the PlayStation numbers, but on Steam, they can't even hit 3,000 players.
Dude, that's less than the amount of people that own Nobody Wants to Die.
Exactly. It's pretty abysmal. It's an open beta for an Overwatch style game, and Overwatch blew up. Huge popular game, which to be fair, they've sort of killed their popularity with the second one. But I think it's just an overcrowded genre, and people don't like what they see with the way it looks. Yeah. I have heard conflicting stuff. If you look at social media, there's actually quite a few articles and or people that are supporting the game. They're like, I think people are just arguing it because it looks this way, but it's actually fun. But I've also seen plenty of, I've seen a good, healthy mix of hate and support for it. So who knows? The game's going to release at $40 on both PC and PlayStation, so maybe it'll do well. But the problem is there's so many hero shooters available that are free. Overwatch being one of them. The new Marvel's Heroes one is going to be another one. I believe. Yeah, Marvel Rivals. Here you go. Yeah, and so there's just so many options that are free to play. Why would people choose a buy to play one, even if it's made by Sony? You know,
the only thing that would sell me on it is buying it and not having microtransactions. If it was a non-microtransaction game, I'd probably personally rather pay the $40 to have just the game rather than play a game that's going to try and get me to spend money on it the rest of my life. But that's just me personally.
I kind of want to download it to play it just because, but the thing is I don't really care for the genre, so I don't think I'm going to.
I definitely don't either. It's not my vibe. I would much rather play Throne and Liberty, which is open beta right now. I haven't played it because I've been on this and BG3 because I still haven't beaten BG3 and I needed to start over. So
my copy of that came in. I told you that a couple of episodes ago.
You did.
Fan base. And I have been playing it myself as well.
Nice.
So yes.
Yeah.
It's a very good game.
It is a fantastic game. Deserves all the praise it got.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens with this game. I don't expect it to do super well.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's a little unfortunate because it's a budget title, clearly. But it shows, I guess. The next bit of news, real short, Xbox is in the hot seat again with the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, which is an American organization, because basically with Sony or with Microsoft's price increase / downgrade of their service, at least that's what the FTC is calling it. Basically, they're saying that, see, I freaking told you so. We told you that the price was going to increase and that they're going to take things away from fans. I told you so. I don't think it's going to do anything, but that's where they're at the moment.
Yeah.
The last of these, or the second to last of these things, Splitgate, which is basically Halo with portals. The Splitgate 2 was properly shown, and it also looks like a DEI mess of Snapchat filters and colors and everything else. The first game came and went really quickly, but it was also really lauded. People really liked it. So I don't know. It's really weird. It came out and less than a year later was gone. So I'm not sure. I don't think they took the servers offline, but they stopped supporting it really fast. It was also free to play. It was also free to play to begin with. So I don't know. Maybe they decided they wanted to start over on a new engine or something. anyways, yeah, they properly showed off Splitgate too. If you like Halo, the way the Halo plays, and you like the idea of portals to really play up to mess up the gameplay or mash up the gameplay, I mean, it's worth looking into. I enjoyed the first one enough. And the last of the quickfire news is Ubisoft has quietly delayed the Division Resurgence, which is the free-to-play Division game, and the Rainbow Six on mobile outside of fiscal year 2025, which means we won't see them until 2026 at the earliest.
They canceled the best version of the Division they could have released and delayed everything else. Man, Ubisoft, you guys are just...
They're struggling,
dude.
Man.
They're having a rough go because they're just not making the right calls. It looks like the team who's behind Star Wars Outlaws. What team is building Star Wars Outlaws?
I want to say it's Montreal.
It's got to be, right. Let's see. What team? Where does it? Can I find this? What team? Because it seems like they're the only ones that have their shit together.
It's actually Massive Entertainment, which isn't Massive. Yeah, Massive is the Division team.
Weird.
And the people that made Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, which I stand by. That game is super freaking solid. It actually just came out with its DLC this last week as well. Speaking of Avatar, but like they're a good team.
Well,
very good team.
You say that, but they made Assassin's Creed Revelations, which at the time was not the best received. But
they were ahead behind Revelation?
Yeah,
really?
Yeah. Apparently, in December of 2010, Ubisoft confirmed that Massive would be working on an Assassin's Creed project. On May 5th, 2011, it was announced Massive Entertainment was collaborating on the development of Assassin's Creed Revelations. So,
oddly enough, I'm looking at the video games for Massive Entertainment, at least on Google, anyways.
Maybe
it doesn't say.
Maybe they only assisted.
It does say Revelation, but okay. I would assume they probably assisted. But I don't know. I'd have to look.
Yeah, I don't know. But they seem to be the only one with a fucking head on their shoulders at this point, because that's the only game from Ubisoft that's looking good.
Yeah, no, it really is. I mean, even to give them a little bit of credit, even one small game now and again not being perfect, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. Yeah,
Assassin's Creed Revelation was still fun. It just definitely was. Yes. It added some weird new mechanics and did some weird things.
Revelation is the one that really fucked the storyline, honestly.
I would say 4 fuck the storyline. I'd say 3 fuck the storyline. 3 was a good wrap up, but then they just didn't know what to do and they floundered. But that's
but Revelation is the one that killed Desmond.
Nope,
and so that's
3.
the one that was it 3?
Yes. Revelation wrapped up Altair's story. It did a weird thing. It wrapped up Altair's story by using Ezio to recover literal CDs that he could relive the memory of Altair past Assassin's Creed 1 and kind of wrapped up Assassin's Creed 1 and Altair's story. And it was when Desmond was unconscious. That's when Brotherhood and Revelations take place, is when Desmond's like in the Animus, in kind of a coma, and then 3 he comes out, and then in 3 he dies.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I just
when it comes to
the wrong game.
Yep. When it comes to the lore of Assassin's Creed, I got it. I wish I didn't, but I do. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for us tonight, guys. Thank you so much. We're going to head over to the Patreon side, do some exclusive topics over there. Not quite sure what we're going to talk about, but it might include Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. There's some news about it. We might talk about that, talk about some other stuff, talk about some upcoming games. So if you want to know more about games that are coming out that sound interesting to us, maybe head over to our Patreon and consider subscribing. $3 gets you access to that. It has a special feed for Spotify. So if you join it and you link your Spotify account to your Patreon, you can get those episodes directly to your Spotify feed. You don't have to go to Patreon and download them every week. They go straight to Spotify. So that's an option for you guys as well. Also, you get it a day early. So there's that. So, Tim, any final words?
Tell your mama said hi.
Have a great night, everyone. We will see you next week.